Respected Principal Ma'am, Monali Ma'am and Udaya Ma'am, warm welcome to everyone.
Both Nelson Mandela and South Africa had traveled a long way to get to this moment. More than 300 years of white domination ended for good with the swearing in of Nelson Mandela as this African nation's first black president.
So help me God.
He was the most famous opponent of the brutal racist system of apartheid, imprisoned 27 years. Today, Mandela paid tribute to his new vice president, F.W. de Klerk, the last apartheid president who negotiated the historic transfer of power. Mandela then called for unity in this racially diverse and racially divided land.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us.
This was something few people ever had expected to see, a peaceful transition after years of bloody racial strife. Hundreds of dignitaries from around the world came to witness history, to see the South African military, which once had enforced apartheid, fly overhead in tribute to Nelson Mandela, trailing the colors of the new South African flag.
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, 18 July 1918 to 5 December 2030, was South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, statesman and philanthropist who served as President of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was country's first black head of state and first elected in fully representative democratic election.
Rolihlahla Mandela, born in 1918 to the chief of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape, Mpakanyiswa Mandela. Their lives changed when the government stripped the chief of his title and land after a disagreement. Mvezo was no longer home. The Mandela family walked many miles to Qunu, where they settled. Young Rolihlahla loved living in Qunu. He was free to run in the fields near his mother's hut. He tended to cattle and played as long as he obeyed his father and abided by the customs of his people. Go, Puti, go! This part of young Mandela's life ended when he was 9 years old and his father died. He was taken in and educated by the regent Jongintaba. He had to be strong. He was sent to boarding school where he worked hard. He was one of a few African children to go to high school. At Hilltown, the largest school for Africans in the country, he became a leader. Mandela was sent to Fort Hare University. In 1940, he stood up for change and joined the student boycott. He faced two choices: back down or be expelled. He chose expulsion. The regent was furious and insisted that Mandela return to university. He arranged marriages for him and his own son, Justice. They decided to escape. They arrived in Johannesburg, a city built on the labor of African miners. There was no turning back.
Against overwhelming odds, he achieved his dream of equality for all South Africans. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 in a small South African village. His father, a tribal chief, gave his son the name Rolihlahla. At the age of 7, he began his British education, and his teacher gave him the name Nelson. When his father died, Nelson was sent to live with the leader of the Thembu people. He groomed Nelson for leadership, letting him sit in on council meetings, sending him to the finest schools. During a break from college, Nelson ran away to Johannesburg in order to avoid a prearranged marriage. It was 1941, and for the first time, Nelson came face to face with the brutal reality of a racially divided South Africa.
By entering the city
Apartheid was discrimination based on color of skin. In 1930s, the whites in South Africa were treated well, while people with black skin color were not treated well by the government as well as the white citizens of South Africa. Nelson Mandela fought for the equality of people with black skin color. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress and established the African National Congress Youth League, or the ANCYL. Very soon, Nelson Mandela became one of the most popular leaders in the community of people with black skin color. He led the Defiance Campaign in 1952 and Congress of the People in 1955. Due to his rising popularity, Nelson Mandela was considered a danger by the white authorities. In July 1952, Nelson Mandela was arrested under the Suppression of Communism Act. The treason trial was a trial in Johannesburg in which 156 people, including Nelson Mandela, were arrested in a raid and accused of treason in South Africa in 1956. Umkhonto weSizwe, meaning Spear of the Nation, abbreviated MK, was the armed wing of the African National Congress, co-founded by Nelson Mandela in the wake of the Sharpeville massacre. Its mission was to fight against the South African government. After taking part in the unsuccessful protest against racial discrimination, Mandela concluded that violent action would prove necessary to end apartheid.
Father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi has been an inspiration to millions across the globe. Gandhi, who spent 21 years of his life in South Africa, got his first taste of racism in the country. He was kicked off a train in Pietermaritzburg and hence began his battle for the rights of Indians in South Africa. Among the millions who Gandhi inspired was Nelson Mandela, the social rights activist, politician and philanthropist, who went on to become South Africa's first black president. Often referred to as Africa's Gandhi, Mandela was deeply influenced by Gandhi's passive resistance and satyagraha as effective political tools. At the conferral of the freedom of Pietermaritzburg on Mahatma Gandhi, Mandela said, and I quote, "Gandhi's magnificent example of personal sacrifice and dedication in the face of oppression was one of his many legacies to our country and to the
5th of August 1962, Nelson Mandela was arrested near the South African town of Howick and imprisoned, facing charges of inciting workers' strikes and of leaving the country without a passport. He wasn't released for nearly 28 years. Mandela was a leading figure of the anti-apartheid movement and protested peacefully against the racist system. However, having been imprisoned after being found guilty of treason, he adopted more militant tactics on his release and soon became a wanted man. His arrest came after he spent 6 months travelling in disguise around Africa and to London in order to win support for the movement. The trial began on the 15th of October, with Mandela representing himself and using his defence speeches as a way to promote the African National Congress's moral opposition to racism. In his famous Black Man in a White Man's Court speech, for example, he said that he would serve the sentence handed down by the court, but would continue to fight against racial discrimination. Having been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, Mandela was jailed in Pretoria, Robben Island, and then back in Pretoria again, all within a 9-month period. Shortly after his return to Pretoria, though, he and 9 other defendants were charged on 4 new counts, this time relating to sabotage and conspiracy to violently overthrow the government, and they were put on trial in what has become known as the Rivonia trial. The trial brought international attention to the anti-apartheid struggle, but having been found guilty, Mandela and his co-defendants were sentenced to life imprisonment. Mandela was finally released in 1990, after serving 27 years, 6 months, and 5 days.
Now President in all but name, Nelson Mandela swept into the ANC headquarters to address his followers. The outcome had been a virtual certainty all along. But the sense of history was lost on no one. More than merely leading the fight against apartheid, Nelson Mandela came to embody it. The struggle is my life, he'd said. His personal victory was the victory of an entire nation.
This is one of the most important moments in the life of our country. I stand before you filled with deep pride and joy. Pride in the ordinary, humble people of this country.
Earlier, the National Party had conceded defeat. President de Klerk bowed out with dignity, but left no doubt he intended to play a significant part in the new South Africa.
Mr. Mandela has walked a long road and now stands at the top of the hill. As far as my own position is concerned, I should like to make it clear that I believe that my political task is just beginning.
Nelson Mandela's inauguration as his country's first democratically elected president is just days away. Election returns will give his party a commanding majority in the new parliament, with the National Party a distant second and the other parties far behind both. Difficult questions will have to be faced, but on this evening in Johannesburg, nothing seemed insurmountable.
Okay. Diplomet har denne gangen et maleri av Jakob Weidemann. De to deler også prisbeløpet på 6,7 millioner svenske kroner.
Nelson Mandela administration inherited a country with a huge disparity in wealth and services between white and black communities. There was 33% unemployment and just half of the population lived below the poverty line. New Constitution of South Africa was agreed upon by the Parliament in May 1996, instilling a series of institutions to place checks on political and administrative authority with a constitutional democracy. Nelson Mandela became president of African National Congress in 1991. The election was won by the African National Congress and Nelson Mandela was elected as President of South Africa. Nelson Mandela was South Africa's first black president. He served 27 years in prison.
Nelson Mandela was born on 18 July 1918 to the royal family of the Thembu tribe in Mbizo, British South Africa. His father's name was Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa Mandela and his mother's Noskini Fanny. His original name was Ralalala and he got the name Nelson from a teacher at the age of 7. He was a hard-working student and would go on to become a law major at the University of Fort Hare and the University of Witwatersrand. Afterward, he became a lawyer in Johannesburg, during which he introduced himself to anti-colonial and African nationalist movements. This video present the life of Nelson Mandela as a social rights activist, politician and philanthropist. First years as an activist. In 1943, Mandela joined the ANC African National Congress Party and co-founded its Youth League in 1944. After the establishment of apartheid, a system that promoted white supremacy and suppression of black people, ANC's members, including Mandela, made it their life mission to overthrow this injustice. Mandela rose to the rank of president of the ANC's Transvaal branch, receiving widespread attention for his role in the 1952 Defiance Campaign and the 1955 Congress of the People. Not surprisingly, he was increasingly unpopular among the white-only authority. In 1956, he was arrested for treason and served 5 years in prison. After discharge, along with his fellow ANC members and the South African Communist Party, SACP, Nelson co-founded the militant group named Umkhonto we Sizwe, the Spear of the Nation, and led an anti-government sabotage campaign. Unfortunately, he was re-arrested in 1962, this time sentenced to life imprisonment for conspiring against the nation. Prison life and rise in influence. Mandela spent the next 27 years in prison, transferred from Robben Island to Pollsmoor Prison and Victor Verster Prison. During 18 years staying in Robben Island, he and his comrades were physically and verbally abused by the white guards. Mandela's eyesight was also permanently damaged due to having to work at a lime quarry without glasses. Nonetheless, his influence as a human rights activist grew despite all the terrible conditions he had to endure in Robben Island. Nelson rose to become a prominent figure among ANC prisoners on the island and expanded his sphere of influence beyond that, joining a group representing all Robben Island political prisoners called Ulundi, through which he built connections with 2 other activist groups, the Pan-Africanist Congress and Ukai Chan Club. Later, he initiated a movement called the University of Robben Island, enabling prisoners to share the expert skills and knowledge, with Nelson himself debated socio-political topics with his comrades. To the white guards that mistreated him, he sought to understand them and convert them to his cause. In 1982, he and some other ANC figures would be transferred to the second confinement, Pollsmoor Prison. The reason for this transfer was suspected to be the authorities' fear of Nelson's rising prominence in Robben Island. Ironically, his significance as a freedom fighter didn't diminish because of that, but grew more powerful during his stay there. Conditions at Pollsmoor were better than at Robben Island, and Nelson got on well with the site's commanding officer. Utilizing his freedom of reading and correspondence, he read and wrote tirelessly, reaching out to not only the black community, but also people of other races. In the 1980s, South Africa plunged into chaos due to socio-economic breakdowns. Violence burst out across the country, and many international banks withdrew investment from South Africa. Pressured by British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and bankers, President Botha reluctantly offered to release Nelson from prison if he rejected violence as a political weapon. Showing no compromise, he declined, stating that the ANC would renounce violence if the government did the same. This resulted in him being given solitary confinement, which worsened his tuberculosis condition. In 1988 he was transferred to Victor Verster Prison, and it was there that things changed for the better. He was housed in the relative comfort of a warder's house with a personal cook and used the time to complete his Bachelor of Law degree. While there, he was permitted many visitors and organized secret communications with exiled ANC leader Oliver Tambo. The new president of South Africa, Fr de Klerk, met him to discuss abolishing apartheid and had him released in 1990. Presidency and later life. In 1991, Nelson became president of the ANC and collaborated with President de Klerk to end apartheid peacefully, promising equal rights for everyone. Their fight for the peace of South Africa earned the pair the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. His tireless fighting for what's right eventually paid off in the 1994 general election, which granted the right to vote to all races in South Africa. The ANC won and Nelson Mandela became the first black president of the country. Now with a new role, Nelson Mandela continued his fight for black people's rights by issuing policies to improve the living standards and facilities of black South Africans, seeking to relieve them from the pain of decades under oppression. He extended his humanitarian policies to making South Africa a country of equality, regardless of race and color. In 1999, Nelson Mandela withdrew from politics. But while he lived a quiet life in his final years, he continued to be an icon of peace and equality worldwide. In the same year that he retired, Nelson founded the Nelson Mandela Foundation, an organization that is dedicated to upholding the principles of equality, freedom, and peace. In South Africa, he is often referred to by his Xhosa clan name, Madiba, and described as the father of the nation. His pass away in 2013 saddened the world and left many in tears, but his status as a symbol of equality, peace, and humanitarianism will stay forever.
Retirement. Retiring in June 1999, Mandela aimed to lead a quiet life divided between Johannesburg and Kuno. In 2002, Mandela inaugurated the Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture, and in 2003, the Mandela Rhodes Foundation was created at Rhodes University of Oxford to provide a postgraduate scholarships to African students. Projects were followed by Nelson Mandela against HIV/AIDS. In June 2004, aged 85 and amid failing health, Mandela announced that he was retiring from retirement and retreating from political life, remarking, "Don't call me, I will call you." Mandela's 90th birthday was marked across the country on 18 July 2008, celebrations held at Kuno.
His political life developed was strongly influenced by his legal training and practice. In particular, his hope to achieve change not through violence but through legal revolution. Over the course of his life, he began by advocating a part of non-violence, later embracing violence, and then adopting non-violence approach to negotiation and reconciliation.
The happiness of the human being must, in any society, be an end in itself. The empowerment of the ordinary people of our world freely to determine their destiny, unhindered by tyrants and dictators, is at the very heart of the reason for the existence of this organization. The great challenge of our age to the United Nations organization is to answer the question, given the interdependence of the nations of the world, what is it that we can and must do to ensure that democracy, peace, and prosperity prevail everywhere? Our common humanity and the urgency of the knock on the door of this great edifice demand that we must attempt even the impossible.
While living in Johannesburg in 1950, and Mandela cultivated image of the African gentleman having the present close, correct manners and modulated public speech associated with such a position. Mandela became one of the first media politicians embodying glamour and a style that projected visually a brave new world of modernity and freedom. Mandela was known to change several times a day and associated with highly colored batik shirts called as Madiba shirts. Nelson Mandela was described as a born mass leader who could not help magnetizing people, also described as an exceptionally intelligent, shrewd, and loyal leader. Mandela was also called master of imagery and performance. His public speeches were presented in a formal, stiff manner and often considered of cliched set phrases. Characteristics Characteristics of Mandela. He was stubborn, loyal, exhibited quick temper few times, friendly, welcoming. He appeared relaxed in all types of conversations with opponent. He was polite, courteous, and attentive to all conversations. Irrespective to age or status, he spoke to children and servants. He was fond of Indian cuisine. He had lifelong interest in archaeology and boxing. Mandela never had strong religious faith. He was married 3 times, fathered 6 children, 17 grandchildren, and at least 17 great grandchildren. Mandela married Evelyn Toko Massey in October 1944, who was a trainee nurse ANC activist from Enkobo, Transco. They divorced in March 1958 due to Jehovah's Witness. He then married Winnie Madikizela, who was a social worker in June 1958 and divorced in March 1996. His third marriage was with Grace Maisel on his 88th birthday in July 1998.
At number 1 is Nelson Mandela Capture Monument. This Mandela Monument is located at the capture site at KwaZulu-Natal, not far from Durban. Mandela was captured at this spot on 5th August 1962 after a police waved down a car on this lonely country road and discovered that the man posing as the driver was a wanted Mandela. He was arrested, tried and sentenced. Today, the site is marked by this impressive steel artwork. It is made up of dozens of vertical bars which represent his imprisonment. When you stand at exactly the right point, the bars converge to make the image of his face. This memorial stands at 9.48 meters tall. At number 2 is Mandela at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Located at the Union Buildings in Pretoria, this is the spot where Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as the first black president of South Africa. This statue captures something of his radiant energy and enthusiasm. It is 9 meters high, making it the tallest figurative bronze sculpture of Mandela. At number 3 is Boxing Mandela statue. The Boxer statue is about 70 feet tall steel statue. It features a younger Mandela during his boxing years. The statue can be found in the front of the magistrate office in downtown Johannesburg and faces onto the offices where he worked as a young lawyer in the city.
Over the course of his life, Mandela was given over 250 awards, accolades, prizes, honorary degrees, and citizenship in recognition of his political achievements. Among his awards were the Nobel Peace Prize, the US Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Soviet Union's Lenin Peace Prize, and the Libyan Al-Gaddafi International Prize for Human Rights. In 2004, Johannesburg granted Mandela the freedom of the city. In 2008, a Mandela statue was unveiled at the spot where Mandela was released from the prison. In November 2009, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed Mandela's birthday, 18 July, as Mandela Day, making his contribution to the anti-apartheid struggle. It called on individuals to...
Thank you, Udaya ma'am, for giving us a great opportunity to show our talent.